about this, and maybe some of the younger ones, maybe you know. How many of you know what a resume is? Now, I'm assuming that you have a job, which most of you don't. But one day, hopefully, we pray that you will have a job. Now, Jared, when you tried to get a job recently, what did you have to turn in?
A resume.
A resume. Let's talk about some of the things that the resume includes. Now, on my resume, I have a resume. My resume includes my name, my address, my phone number, my email address. No, because I don't just that info out.
References.
Somebody's going to steal your identity.
Work experience.
Education, skills, activities, all these things. Like your resume includes all of these things. Now, let's talk about this. I want to get a job. I turn in my resume to the potential employer. My resume should convince them of what? That I'm worthy of the position, right? Look at my resume. By my resume, you can tell that I'm capable of handling this position. You should hire me. You should let me have this job. You should let me in. That's what a resume says. A resume says, I can handle this, give it to me. Now, like my resume, employer looks over, oh, look at that, college degree, bam. Oh, if he had a picture, it'd look even better because he's hot. Anyway, I'm joking. Calm down. Calm down. Calm down. He looks through my resume. He's going to think, wow, this guy's awesome. I'm going to let him in. I'm going to let him have a job. That's a resume. We all know what a resume is. Now, that's talking about potential job. Well, let me ask you this. Do you know that you also have a spiritual resume? You have a spiritual resume. Now, if we're being honest, whenever you go to fill out a resume, you're going to try to make that thing look as good as possible, right? Because you want that person to hire you. You may even exaggerate just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. You will. So on a spiritual resume, we have a tendency to exaggerate just a little bit. And we want to throw in all the good stuff. What do you not put on a resume? The things that you're bad at. Like, I'm not going to put on my resume, I suck at working with people. I hate people. If I see a person, I'll punch them in the face. Nobody's going to hire me. If you're bipolar, like Greg said, if you're bipolar, you don't put that on the resume. You don't let them know. If you frequently take dumps in your pants, you don't say that on the resume. Because you're not going to hire you. You're not going to hire you if you do that. Because, no, this is nasty. He's not working here. He's not working here. So what I'm saying is, on our spiritual resume, we have a tendency to want to put things on there to make us look better. Hey God, look at what I did. I helped an old woman across the street. She was crippled, and I helped her. I gave some money to charity. I tried to cure AIDS, God. I did all this stuff. Like you're trying to beef up that spiritual resume, don't you? If we're honest, I promise you, from the youngest to the oldest, no matter how great of a Christian you think you are, at some point or another, we've tried to beef up that spiritual resume. We've tried to make it better. Now, if you will, please, let's read Matthew 7, starting in verse 21. This whole conversation is about resumes. Now, what's our series called? Yeah, that stuff. Now, who said this stuff? Jesus. Now, if it's Jesus, and we call ourselves Christians, we're named after Him, would the things that He say be slightly ever so important? Maybe. Slightly. Just a little. Anyway, let's read this. Starting in verse 21. We're going to go one verse at a time. There's only 3 of them. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Okay, now there's a problem. He's saying there's no magical password. Like, it's not like you can... Did you ever build a fort when you were little?
Yes.
And then you have like a password?
I still have one.
And he still has one. And you go to get in that fort, and you knock on like the entrance, and your buddies are in there, and they say, what's the password? And you say, Oklahoma, whatever the password is. And then they don't let you in. You just want to freak out and stab them, like, let me in my... I play that. Pee-wee play that. Now, here's what Jesus is saying. Some of you think there's a magical password. You're going to die one day, you're going to get to heaven, knock on the door and say, yo, Jesus, Lord, Lord. And He's going to say, that's not the password. You're not coming in. Now that, I'm laughing the majority of you, the majority of the people in the world, when they die, are going to be like, yo, Jesus, Lord, can I come in? Hey, Jesus, can I please come in? Please. What have we been talking about? What we talked about the first week? There is a broad path. There is, what kind of tree? There's two kinds of trees. There's good and bad. Now, there is a broad path that leads to destruction. There is a dying tree that does not produce any fruit. And Jesus says, there are people who are going to say, Lord, Lord, please let me in. And He's not going to let them. Now, I think Jared's testimony was powerful because he said, I knew all the church rules. I knew everything that I was supposed to say. I knew all the hymns. I could play the games just right. But I didn't know God. I'm there. Like, I didn't go to church that much when I was young. I started going when I was around 15. And I didn't really understand church culture that much, but I picked up enough real quick that everybody in the church thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like, oh, that Daniel, he just loves Jesus. Oh, bless the Lord. Bless him. I'm sorry, I'm acting retarded. I drank a Monster and some Dayquil, and I'm just not. I think it counteracts each other. Anyway. So, at 17, 18, I finally got it. But as somebody who went to church religiously, I would have died, and God would have said, I don't know who you are. You're not coming in. But Jesus, Lord, Lord, you're not coming in. You're not coming in. You're not coming in. Now, so this is where this brings us. We've been saying this a lot. Not everybody who says I'm a Christian really is a Christian. Not everybody who says it really is. Because the thing about the people who die, they wind up in heaven, knock, knock, Lord, Lord, please let me in. And Jesus is going to say, no, you're not coming in. Are those people really Christians? No. But they think they are, don't they? They die and they think they are. Now Jesus goes on to say, only the ones who do the will of my Father. What is the will of His Father? How do we know what it is? It's easy. John 17:17 says this. Really easy. He says, Jesus Christ, your word is truth. The words of Jesus are truth. Pure, plain, simple. You don't have to act like, oh, it's too hard to understand the Bible. No. Jesus' words are truth. Jesus' letter goes on to say that every word that has ever came out of my mouth is going to judge you. So when we stand before God, knock, knock, can I come in? He's going to say, what did you do with my word? What did you do? What did you do with it? We want to get to heaven, knock, knock, Lord. Lord, Lord, please let me in. Let me in. And it goes back to the resume thing. Some people think, I'm a Christian. But does their life show it? Does it really reveal it? Did you know that, this is funny, Adolf Hitler claimed to be a Christian?
That's funny.
It is funny. He's not, we've been talking about lukewarm. Remember lukewarm Christians? Adolf Hitler wasn't even lukewarm. He was cold. That's cold, very cold. Adolf Hitler claimed to be a Christian. And there's tons of people like that throughout history that claim to be something. Would you say Adolf Hitler is dancing around the throne with God right now? Probably not. I can't judge any man's heart, but if I were to give my professional opinion, I would say he is probably not a Christian. He's probably not a Christian. Now, let me see where I'm going with this. Okay, here we go. Let me ask you this. Same question. We've been asking this for 3 weeks. Is it possible that you can know who Jesus is, but not really know Jesus?
Yes.
We all nod our heads and say, yes. Yes, you can. Yes. So here's the question I want each and every one of you, myself, Jared, John, Stephen, to the adults in the back, no matter who you are, I want you to ask yourself this question. Listen to this. Do you have saving faith? I didn't ask you if you know who God is. I didn't ask you if you own a Bible. I didn't ask you if you've ever been to church. I'm asking you, do you have the type of faith that will save you? Do you have that? Don't give me stupid religious answers like, well, you know, Jesus is God. Who doesn't know that? Do you have a saving faith? Something real. Something that's going to last. I want you to ask each and every one of yourselves this question. When I die and I stand before God, what's He going to say? I don't know who you are, or, hey, come on in, boy, I've been waiting on you. What's He going to say? What's He going to say to each and every one of us? Now, let's go to verse 22. Before we go there, let me talk about something else real quick. Sorry, I told you I'm kind of forgetful right now. There are some of you who think, now I don't want you to raise your hand, I don't want you to do any of that, I just want to ask you this question. How many of you have ever walked down an aisle or prayed a prayer or the pastor said, repeat this after me, and you repeated it? Or, I don't know, maybe you were at church camp and somebody said, do you want to be a Christian? If you do, just put your hand up in the air and God's gonna, and you slipped it up real, you didn't want anybody to see it, just really small. Yeah. Or they said, hey, if you want to become a Christian, just look up at me, make eye contact, and really quickly you went, and then you put your hand back down and you went, see it. How many of you have done that in the past? But then absolutely nothing about your life has changed. I don't believe, after reading this, I just can't believe that you can really meet Jesus and nothing change about your life. I just don't think it's possible. I don't know, maybe it's just me, I just don't think it's possible. I don't know. Now there are people who say, literally, I heard people say, well, you know, I'm forgiven, you know, I can do whatever I want, you know. You expect that you can live your life however you want, and then Jesus is somehow magically obligated to zap you to heaven. That sounds ridiculous, you know? It's like, well, I prayed a prayer when I was younger, brother, so now I can go on and do whatever I want. And now, Jesus, you have taken to heaven. It would be like this. I get married, and I am married. Thank you, Caleb. Love you. So, I get married. On my wedding day, repeating my vows, my wife says this, Daniel, I love you no matter what. To the day that you die, to the day that I die, no matter what happens, I'm there to the end and I love you. And she said all that to me. It was very pretty. You should have been there. And she said this, and Daniel, I love you no matter what happens in this life. I promise you I'll be with you to the end. Now, what if my response would have been, awesome, can I have a girlfriend? I mean, if you love me to the end, can I go get a girlfriend? Would you say that's an abuse of love? You would all say that. So then why would we say, yeah, I prayed a prayer, now I'm golden, Jesus zapped me to heaven, I'm going to go live my life and do whatever I want now? Does that seem like an abuse of love? It does, doesn't it? It sounds very abusive. But when I tell you the story about me and my wife, you all think, that's sick, that's ridiculous that you would even think of such a thing, that you would say that to your wife, and I didn't say that, but that you would even say something like that to your wife. That is so abusive. You don't love her, but yet we treat God like that. How is that possible? How is it possible? So once again, same conclusion. Jesus has given us how many choices? Two choices. My friend Greg said, 2 choices. 2 very simple, small choices. And it's all or nothing. There's no lukewarm, there's no in between. It's all or nothing. If you meet Jesus, you have to change. Now, we'll go to verse 22.